But first, the billionaire businessman turned Republican candidate turned president-elect defeated Democratic rival Hillary Clinton. The first set of polls closed at 7 last night, but the race was not called until shortly before 3 this morning.
Right after that call, Donald Trump delivered a victory speech at the Hilton. It's near Times Square here in New York City. He said, and I quote, "I promise you, I will not let you down."
Trump's sweep in battleground states like Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania ultimately decided the race. Trump surpassed the 270 mark in electoral votes.
And so we want to give you a look at just some of the headlines you might be seeing today. The New York Times, Trump triumphs. The New York Post here, quite simply, President Trump, and the New York Daily News, House of Horrors.
Never shy.
Never shy. We do want to welcome our panel here to discuss it all. Linda Tran is the CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. Kevin Sheridan, also a CBSN contributor and a Republican strategist. He's also the former communications director for Paul Ryan's 2012 VP bid. And Jay Hogan Gidley, CBSN contributor and Republican strategist. And let's start then at the end of what began in the early evening hours last night. It was a somewhat gracious Donald Trump as he accepted the victory, accepted the presidency early this morning. I want to play a portion of the speech, get your thoughts on the other end.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard. Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time, and we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. I mean that very sincerely. Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division, have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me. For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
Just a portion of the speech delivered by President-elect Donald Trump. And Kevin, I know you yesterday, throughout the morning, were saying you were going to be looking at how the two candidates last night conducted themselves. What'd you make then of first what we saw there?
Well, I think he did what he needed to do to start to unite the country, but it is one night only. And as we've seen with Donald Trump, staying on any one message for any given time can be a bit of an issue for him. He has a real opportunity, though, and to bring the country together, to start to heal the country. There's a lot of very angry people out there, very shocked right now, very hurt. He needs to express some emotions that he hasn't been able to express so far, and he needs to start that right away. He needs to reach out to Democrats. I'm looking for Hillary Clinton's speech today to be magnanimous in defeat, to reach out an olive branch as the leader of the Democratic Party. And I think Donald Trump should immediately begin to reach out to Democrats and start talking about his first 100 days and what he can do with them.
Linda, Hillary Clinton, as Kevin notes, has not spoken. Her campaign chair, John Podesta, addressed the audience at the Javits Center last night and said, "We're still counting votes." You saw Donald Trump said in his remarks, "This is about us." Where are Democrats today?
I actually haven't spoken to any. It's pretty early in the morning, but I gotta say, obviously my heart goes out to all the people that worked really, really hard on this fight. That said, Hillary Clinton has already demonstrated that in the face of a really, really tough defeat, she can deliver a unifying message, she can deliver an inspirational message, and I would hope that she does that to build on what I think Donald Trump was trying to start to do yesterday.
Surprised, Linda, that she didn't speak last night?
I'm not surprised. I mean, it was late. There was a lot going on. It's not dissimilar from what happened, again, the last time she suffered a really tough defeat.
But is the suggestion that if there are still votes being counted, we should say, on the West Coast, if Hillary Clinton does emerge with the popular vote, is she going to use that somehow in the coming days?
You know, I highly doubt it. I'm hearing from some of the folks who know the numbers better than I do that, you know, she lost Ohio and Iowa by somewhere close to 9 points, the same margin as Texas. I mean, let's just let that sink in for a second there. And, you know, she probably actually performed just as well in urban areas as Barack Obama did. She just got trounced in manufacturing and blue-collar counties. So, you know, I think that the writing has been written on the wall. I think that you know, American people have spoken, and she's going to accept that.
Hogan, I want to get your thoughts here. Another interesting note from Donald Trump's speech was a change in tenor. We heard a bit of it there. I want to play a bit more of it as he seemed to steer away from a rather dark painting of a picture of the nation, which he will now lead. I want to play a bit more of that and get your thoughts on the other side.
We have a great economic plan. We will double our growth and have the strongest economy anywhere in the world. At the same time, we will get along with all other nations, willing to get along with us. We will be. We'll have great relationships. We expect to have great, great relationships. No dream is too big, no challenge is too great. Nothing we want for our future is beyond our reach. America will no longer settle for anything less than the best. We must reclaim our country's destiny and dream big and bold and daring. We have to do that. We're going to dream of things for our country, and beautiful things and successful things once again. I want to tell the world community that while we will always put America's interests first, we will deal fairly with everyone,
So much of the polling suggested not just that a change candidate was the candidate that the majority of the electorate preferred, but also that it was they were going to elect someone who they thought could put the country back on course. So the idea of Make America Great Again obviously resonated with a majority. So it seems there's a twofold issue here, not just perhaps, as we spoke yesterday, putting the country back together again, but also now convincing even those who voted for you that the vision that they share of the country is now one that he can undo and reverse.
Right. It reminds me of the adage of the dog chasing the car. When the dog catches the car, what does he do with it? The dog caught the car last night. He's now the president of this country. And you began to see, I think, what could be described as a titanic shift from where he was on the stump and where he is now, talking about unifying the country, which I was surprised he didn't take a few more jabs, quite frankly. This was a moment where a clunky, cumbersome candidate came into his own, I guess. He appeared, the stage was not too big for him. I think a lot of people were shocked and surprised. He came out and laid out somewhat of a vision, but there has been a vast preponderance, I would say, of people in elected office at the Senate and congressional level that have no interest in governing whatsoever, for various reasons we've outlined for days now. But it's going to take more than a speech right after his election. He's going to have to put in some work and some time and some energy and effort to bring some of these warring factions within his own party and the warring factions within the Democratic Party as well together to actually move this country forward. And being on the opposite side, he's going to fight some Democrats for sure, but he's going to fight some Republicans too.
That brings to the fore the fundamental question about what a Trump administration even looks like in terms of policy, right? Mm-hmm. In many ways, Trump's position on a host of issues, whether it's trade or foreign policy or the social safety net programs, may be at odds with that of his party, especially in congressional leadership. Kevin, what do you think folks like Paul Ryan can expect to work with?
Well, it depends on what version of Donald Trump policy vision we get. You know, he's been on several sides of a lot of different issues. There's a couple of things we know he believes in. He wants to secure the border. That's something House Republicans want to do. Senate Republicans can do that. We now have a unified government. We can actually do these things that we want to do. So we might actually get progress on immigration, tax cuts, corporate tax cuts. These are things that we, have been fighting to get for years. He could actually get that done. If he wants to start a trade war, I think he's going to have a real hard time with House Republicans.
But don't you think that's a sort of signature, if we're looking at the results from last night?
Yeah, if he says he wants to renegotiate a major, like a NAFTA, that might be tough. If it's he wants to add some provisions into TPP that are more pro-American worker, whatever that is, they can start to have that discussion. I don't think he's going to get into the weeds on those things. He's going to delegate that to the Jeff Sessions and the people the policy people in his administration. And there is a policy framework on the table for him to adopt if he wants it. He can pick and choose parts of that. Paul Ryan's already put it out there. A better way. He's got a 6-point plan that encompasses everything that he could want.
Specifically to Paul Ryan, though, reporting suggested he called Donald Trump relatively early in the evening last night, congratulated him on another network. It was theorized that Paul Ryan's days as Speaker are numbered. This has been a very complicated relationship between the two. Where do you think it stands, and what do you make of Speaker Ryan's future?
Well, I think if Paul Ryan wants to be Speaker, and he said he does, I think he's the best option for House Republicans, and House Republicans are the ones who pick their Speaker. It's not decided by the President, and I think he's in a pretty popular. He's in a good spot, because I think when they take a look around, he is the leader of their caucus and a real voice for positive, optimistic, conservative agenda. He's very much the brains of the Republican Party. He's the heart and soul of the conservative movement, and I think they will try to get along. And I also heard things that Donald Trump from his surrogate saying that no, they're not going to start a war with Paul Ryan. So I think they'll get along, and let's just see how that develops. But I think he should be back.
Meanwhile, Linda, first as a former organizer, boots on the ground, it's too big a question to say what we all miss, but in the Insta forensics of it all, what do you think we all missed?
On the boots on the ground front, I think that we probably should have been focused on a number of other states. I think that maybe she didn't focus as much on some of the states that were part of what has been traditionally called the blue wall. That's as far as I can tell from the outside. But I do know that they invested a ton in the infrastructure. They invested a ton in the strategy of getting people on the doors and on the phones and online. And there are probably some remarkable innovations that will inform future campaigns, both in the off year and the next presidential, whether it's the use of kind of peer-to-peer text messaging, the thing that catapulted Bernie Sanders to his fame and to help to build his movement, and that then Hillary Clinton's campaign built their own version of. I think those things are going to persist, and that's kind of the legacy of this particular ground game.
And yet, just to get into the data a little bit and some of the exit polling we're getting, we talked so much yesterday about this theoretical firewall that might have existed among Hispanic Americans, that there was a flooding to the polls, we were hearing anecdotally. As it turns out, Hillary Clinton did 6 points worse than President Obama in 2012 among Hispanics. Donald Trump did 2 points better than Mitt Romney among Hispanics. I read that and thought that was one of the most staggering statistics of a staggering news cycle. What do you make of that, Linda?
It's not unlike actually what we witnessed in Texas in 2014. There was this hope that the Latino vote, the Hispanic vote in Texas, was going to put Wendy Davis over the top. And actually, when the numbers came out, it became very, very clear that Latino voters were much more conservative about, especially issues around the economy. I have to guess that is probably part of what was driving their decision making last night as well.
Yeah. And we've seen all these exit polls that basically said the number one issue was the economy. I don't think we can separate I guess I should put it this way. That issue to me cuts across all demographics, race, gender, whatever it is, because everyone wants the same thing, to be able to provide for their families, period. Some statistics that our own colleague Leslie Sanchez put together for us talking about some of these Latino votes. About 8 in 10 Latino voters who support Trump were born in the United States. About 2/3 of Latino voters who support Trump has some college education or more. So if you were born in this country, you were more likely to, and Latino, you were more likely to support Donald Trump than someone who would come in here illegally. I mean, I'm shocked that he did that well, considering the campaign that was run. But if the economy is the #1 driving force for every demographic as we've seen, it would make sense that they would say, I want a job, and I think this guy can get me a job.
And it was the number that where he always had a lead. And we made much of the fact that he never had a lead in a national poll. All manner of national polling never suggested what came to pass, but that was consistently a place where he did.
And unchanged. And he had the better theory of the case. She really didn't have a compelling argument. She was relying on these demographics, you know. He just might offend just enough people that in this demographic that I could get, you know, boost my turnout there. He always had a better message. His message was, I'm going to Washington to change Washington. That's what a lot of people wanted.
But also in an election that we all, I think, can agree, I feel like I've asked all 4 of you at some point about the idea of a turnout election, that the Obama coalition is only as strong as its numbers. And across the board, you know, we could talk about all of these because virtually all of them did not show up. You know, Linda, I know the campaign was concerned about it. I know there were varying degrees of copping to that fear, perhaps, inside the campaign. But it's as surprising, perhaps, as this result is, the explanations for it. You know, the seeds were there. That the numbers weren't. You know, I think. If nothing else, perhaps just to Alex's point, that the surge in Latino voting was almost a thought like, oh, it'll take care of it all.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there was never an expectation that some of the demographic groups that you would consider to be part of the Obama coalition, in particular African-American voters, were going to turn out at the levels that they turned out for the first African-American president. But there was absolutely an expectation that she was going to overperform him in among Latinos, among young voters, among women, college-educated women. And what we're seeing today is that just didn't bear out.
I just want to make this point. Yeah. Let's not forget here. Donald Trump, with no money, no turnout apparatus, defeated 16 other Republican candidates, became the nominee 7 weeks before Hillary Clinton was able to do it with 4. After that, we wondered up here with no apparatus, no ability to get out this vote that we're hearing about, would they go vote? They did it in the primary. We thought surely they wouldn't do it in the general, and they did it. I mean, I remember in Iowa, and I remember when it was -10. They stood outside for 4.5 to 6 hours to get in to see him. That's dedication, and that's a movement.
Well, it also, I feel like, speaks to the, I mean, you know, if nothing else, perhaps it's another referendum on television, that you can have all the television ad buys you want, but the voters you're aiming at, a lot of them are actually fast forwarding through those commercials or don't actually have to watch them anymore.
She was outspent.
Whereas, you know, Twitter, every time he tweeted something, it was a targeted ad buy to millions.
But the flip side of that is on the earned media side, of course, right? I mean, he got overwhelmingly much more earned media coverage than she did.
Although,
obviously,
the media coverage for Donald Trump was overwhelmingly negative towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
If we're talking about earned media. There is also the old school emotional connection you have to a leader.
Yeah.
And clearly that was very much in play last night.
Right.
Lots to get to.
Yeah.
We will, because we're just getting started here. Linda Tran, Kevin Sheridan, Jay Hogan, Diddley.